Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today at our NAVI webinar, Parent Power, Depoliticizing the Curriculum. I will be the moderator today of our extraordinary panel. I'm Mika Hackner, Director of Research. And joining us today, we have Tamar Caspi from PK12, co-founder of PK12, Laura Zhiss from SHIELD, based in Georgia, and Kofi Montzka, a absolute superstar powerhouse activist out of Minnesota. I'm super excited, as you might be able to tell, to have these three extraordinary women with us today to talk about their history of educational activism and to talk about depoliticizing the classroom, how we can get politics out of the classroom and neutrality back in. And one of the things that you might notice here is that, Kofi is based in Minnesota, Laura is based in Georgia, Tamar is in California. This is a vast geographic spread. This is not just a local problem. This is a national problem. And so we're going to talk today about how we fight that challenge, how we meet that challenge. So before we get started, why don't we just have the three of you introduce yourselves, and then we'll get started on what do I mean, or what do we mean by the politicization of education. So Tamar, do you want to start us off and give a brief introduction?
Sure. So as Mika said, my name is Tamar Caspi, co-founder of PK12, Partners for Equality, Educational Responsibility in K-12, unapologetically combating Jew hatred in K-12. We got our start about 5 years ago when all of us were home and hearing what our kids were being taught. And we're in California, where we had a AB 101 come down the pipelines, a mandate for the instruction, graduation mandate for the instruction of ethnic studies. And we thought we had pushed back and the governor had vetoed it. And we thought that we got the bad stuff out. And we then heard when our kids were home that the bad stuff was still being taught. And we activated and took action to try to root out this evil from the curriculum. And as we were figuring out the best ways to do so, we then also were activated by students that were victims of anti-Semitic incidents who they and their parents didn't quite know what to do to advocate for themselves. So we have armed them with the resources in regards to ed code, state and federal law to advocate for themselves. And so that's what Peer K-12 does. We do that at a local level here in San Diego. We do it at a state level, and we do it nationwide.
Amazing. Kofi, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Kofi Montzka, and I'm from Minnesota. I'm from actually Washington State, but I moved to Minnesota for law school. I'm a mom of 3 kids, ages 17 to 21, 3 boys. My oldest has special needs, so he's like developmentally 2. I'm a lawyer, and I just have always stood up for what I believe in, just who I am. I used to be more leftist growing up, and then I kind of changed what I thought would be actually best for helping people of color and the poor, who I care about most. And and now I fight for school choice. I have spoken to the legislature a number of times, mainly on the ethnic studies bill they've tried to pass here. I'm a part of many bipartisan efforts. I work with Braver Angels, Foundation Against Racism and Intolerance, Institute for Liberal Values, which is more of a national organization. So that's basically what I do. I just fight for mainly against like a lot of the woke stuff that I believe holds kids of color down, that will hold my kids down. It makes me really mad. So that's what and I also formed a school group too called Roseville United, we've ran people for school board, and we work with our local schools. We can talk more about that later.
Oh, I would love to. Let's flag that. Laura, introduce yourself. Hi.
Well, hello. My name is Laura Zhiss. I own a small logistics company here in Atlanta, Georgia, and I have 3 sons. They are in grades 7th, 8th, and 11th. And if you asked me a year ago, all of this new activism and K-12 issues would not have been in my radar, to be very honest with you. It was about 1 year ago right now when I asked to see my 7th grade son's homework assignment, which gave me great pause when I was looking at the simple worksheet. And it was asking very illogical questions, which then led me to ask for his laptop so I could see the presentations in class, which led me to meetings with the assistant principal. And the next thing I know, it's not just me, it's other families all across Atlanta. And as I've gone down this and peeled those layers of the onion back, what I thought was a problem with a teacher with a homework assignment became, oh my goodness, this is a nationwide problem. So I kind of partnered up in all of my adventures with several other moms here in Atlanta, and we formed SHIELD in a Starbucks last December because we needed a name and not to be called those moms. The SHIELD stands for Supporting Honest Instruction and Equitable Learning for Our Diaspora. And we've been working and attending regular school board meetings, speaking out at the school board meetings. And one of the biggest things we do is collecting samples, because ordinary people don't really understand the magnitude of the problem until you collect all of these classroom examples and literally show it to them on their phone.
Yeah.
They realize the magnitude.
I failed to mention that something else that Laura and Kofi and I have in common. I also have 3 sons.
Oh, wow.
So I have a 12th, 9th, and 6th graders, and I'm also a charter school founder. And I also work I call myself a recovering journalist, currently working in strategic communications.
Wow.
But I just thought that was interesting that all 3 of us have 3 sons.
Yeah, I've only got one son, so I'm behind. I got to catch up. But that brings me to my point. We're all mothers. We're all individuals, and we're all individuals. That's maybe the stupidest thing I've ever said.
Really controversial.
But the point is, you see yourself as just one person, right? And this feels like an overwhelming problem. And so for people, who are just getting into this and just realizing the scale, it might seem like this insurmountable problem. And yet here you are, these 3 women who maybe you just saw yourselves as 3 individuals, and yet you're fighting back. So I want to get into those stories of how you're doing that, like the specifics of how you've been doing that. But first, let's talk about, you said, well, I saw something in my kids' homework that worried me, or something came up in the classroom that worried me. So what do you see as politicization of education? What is that? And how do we know it when we see it? Kofi, do you want to start us off there?
I don't know. I just feel like you know it in your gut when you see it. And unfortunately, it's kind of obvious. Like, it's like, what the? Like, they're not even trying to hide it anymore. And so I just have some examples of how it's shown up. Like during George Floyd, I'm in Minnesota, and where that happened. But they separated in the middle school. They separated the kids by race to have discussions. So you had to pick a race, even if you're biracial, and then they kind of segregated the kids because you have nothing in common with people who are different than you, to have a discussion on George Floyd. I called them out on that. In 4th grade, my kid was given an assignment, and I do have it, like you say, you collect the assignments, where he was told he would face racism and struggle and not be able to make it in every facet of society, from his job to healthcare, in every way. They politicizing a little bit. I mean, one thing they do here is every few years they give the kids this sexual survey about their sex lives and gender, and it's super detailed. And so my group has fought back against that. In band class in 10th grade with my son, the band teacher would just take liberty to do some preaching of his woke religion at the beginning of class every day. And so some of the students would get mad and record it. And so this one student who's Korean got mad, and she recorded it one day because she was so mad about this. But I heard the tape. He literally told the kids that Black boys would likely not live to the age of 50 because they'd be killed by the police or white people.
Wow.
And this is band class, mind you. Right. So it's like they find any example to sneak it in. In science class in 9th grade, part of the standard curriculum for like a week is studying equity in science, and telling the kids that the Black kids that even we're such weak people who would have thunk our ancestors survived slavery, that even the air is going to kill us more likely than strong, virile, healthy white people. Right. And so they sneak it in calculus. They wouldn't give homework. Why? the teacher from India was so mad. She just told the kids because the school said the Black kids don't do their homework, so we're not allowed to give math homework anymore. And my son found it very hard to stay motivated. But I would if there was no reward for doing your homework. So got rid of spelling tests because the Black kids are so stupid, we can't pass them. So all of those are examples of how they sneak this crap in to schools.
Okay. So you mentioned the word equity there. What's the problem with that word, Tamar?
The problem with that word is the definition of that word.
Right.
So equity doesn't mean equal outcome. It means equal opportunity. My son, we just finished up at the charter school that I founded, and they're now in the mainstream public school. And I'm now being exposed to equitable grading.
Oh,
so
yes.
My kid can get 100% in everything, and he's still going to get a B.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's equitable grading, because you have to prove that you have exceeded outcomes in order to get an A, because that way the kids who are meeting, and that way if you go to tutoring, if you go after school, if you are a good student and you're just having attendance, you can get a B. And the kids who are getting 100% on the tests are also getting a B. So we are letting people feel good about themselves, and the kids that are actually doing well in the subject matter are being brought back. It's like and so at our high school down the street a few years ago, I helped the parents and the teachers and the students, because the principal during COVID slowly started taking away honors and advanced classes, thinking people wouldn't pay it notice because it was COVID, and people did notice. And there was this uproar. And so we worked together with them. This was a little bit outside of Peer K-12, but it wasn't. It just also my familiarity with the school district as a charter school founder was we activated them. We got the media attention, and we said, they said, in the name of equity, we're getting rid of merit-based education. And it was the students that are minorities that were the most upset. They said, you are not going to remove merit-based education in our name. You are not going to say that we are not capable of getting there. And the worst part of it is that if you're saying that the AP classes don't have the same amount of demographic, the problem is not to fix it by removing those classes in high school. The problem is go back to your preschool and your kindergarten and make sure that they are hitting their reading and math scores back there. And if they're not, fix it there. You're not fixing it by removing and bringing everyone to the lowest common denominator in high school.
Can you explain to me how equitable grading is an example of the politicization of the classroom? How is that a political ideology? Anyone jump in. Kofi, do you want to jump in?
I mean, let's just be real. They think Black people are stupid, and it's a part of their social justice way. And so they think there are disparities in the world, and there are disparities. But like you said, the way to bring them up is to have these artificial barriers instead of just do the hard work. We need more two-parent families. Sorry, we got to do the work. And with those kids who aren't in them right now, we need to support them to get them up to speed. It's not all about the schools. It's about families. But you know what? All we can cry is racism with the social justice movement. We can never, ever, ever. I mean, I don't mind fighting racism. I know it still exists. I've experienced it even in the last month. The point is like overt. It's crap. But because there's a backlash to this woke movement. But anyway,
this is like a reverse racism. They're like overcorrecting this, and they're not asking the people that are being adversely affected by it. Like this is like a. I don't want to use terminology.
The social justice movement says they're here to fix disparities. So a way to fix disparities is to just get rid of all standards, but the whole reason we're getting rid of the standards is because they think Black people are stupid and people of color are stupid.
So it's social engineering through the classroom rather than having a neutral classroom. We're going to put our political ideology of how we can engineer society into action through the classroom.
But instead, if you really want to engineer society, what you do is what Tamar said, is you do the hard work of trying to figure out why these kids aren't competing and you help them compete by helping them get smarter so they can compete.
From the beginning, the studies show that the kids who go to preschool have a higher rate of going to college, of graduating high school and going to college. So what they're doing, at least in California, is like they have now a universal transitional kindergarten. So you can start as early as 3 years old. So that is going to help. And so if you can go and start school earlier and not go to a daycare or you're not sitting at home until the age of 5, like that will help. But there's an element of these kids are just getting past. It doesn't matter. The reading and math rates in this country are abysmal, and they're so focused on things like ethnic studies.
The lowest since they started recording it in 1992, apparently. The new national scores just came out for math and English.
It's like 70% are not meeting grade standards. It's abysmal, and here they are so hyper-focused on ethnic studies. Ethnic studies, let's just connect the two, oppressed oppressor. So who's in the oppressor? White people. That includes Jews, whether Jews are white or not. Hitler clearly didn't think Jews were white. The Asians are white adjacent. And then everybody else is in the oppressed category. And the oppressed category are the people that they say are not capable of meeting and exceeding. And, you want to point to all the vast people who are people of color, immigrants who have met and exceeded and been successful in this country.
Laura, can you tell us a little bit about how politicization showed up in Georgia classrooms? What have you seen? What have parents shown you? And what did you see yourself of a sort of a political ideology or non-neutral classroom material showing up in your K-12?
Yeah, so we focus primarily on anti-Israel bias and anti-Semitism when it's embedded in the curriculum in the classroom, not behaviors, anti-Semitic behaviors that you might see in a school. We're talking about the stuff that's taught in the classroom. So what we found is it's coming from a couple places. The first and the simplest place is teachers just buying curriculum on teacherspayteachers.com.
Oh, I just want to pause here. I'm so glad you brought that up. I would love you to explain to people what Teachers Pay Teachers is, and then why this can be problematic.
So teacherspayteachers.com, the best way I could describe it, it's like the Etsy. Would you describe it like it's like the Etsy of curriculum materials. They have a lot of stuff in there. It's free or 99 cents, and you literally can purchase curriculum materials, the presentations, worksheet for the classrooms to put on the board, worksheets, reading material, all kinds of materials and manipulatives that you can buy. I mean, they even will sell you entire bundles, social studies units for the 7th grade for $24.99. And, these teachers, sometimes they work hard and it's a lot. And the path of least resistance, if you can throw $1.99 at the problem for the next 3 weeks of classroom teaching, that's exciting. And Teachers Pay Teachers, they even go so far as to show this is aligned with Georgia state standards. So when you go in and buy 7th grade social studies, you'll go and look specifically for your state to make sure what you're teaching meets the standards.
And you think that you're supporting a fellow teacher.
Yes, you feel like you're doing such a good thing. But these curriculum materials have zero vetting and zero quality control. You have no idea who the author is who made it. It could just be a very well-meaning person who they didn't have any ill intent. That's just what they thought was correct. Or, who's not to say that there's other foreign influence who are just putting this stuff all over Teachers Pay Teachers. We have no idea. So that is actually what showed up in my child's classroom that day when I learned that Teachers Pay Teachers was a thing. And I literally lost my mind and was on the phone with my rabbi like 4 times that day because I thought I was losing my mind. Another one, I would say it's even more disturbing is when it's actually in your child's textbook.
Right.
So it's, I was looking at my child, it's bizarre, but their textbooks are now online. It's not a literal book, but it looks like a book, online. And I was reading mine and I actually because I don't claim to be an expert on all things Middle East. I'm a mom. I read it and I was reading the materials and I really questioned it. So I downloaded my child's chapters that were specifically on Israel and the Middle East history, and I sent it off to the Cameras Education Institute and asked them to please, will you confirm, because to what one of you said earlier, the feeling, it's like we all are, as mothers, we have an alarm system that goes off and you sometimes can't verbalize what the problem is. We just know, Houston, we have a problem. Yeah. I had a problem, but I didn't know exactly what it was and I could not articulate it because I am not a professor in Middle East history and politics. But Camera sent me back a report and I was right. It was very, very problematic. Right. So that's another way. It's through the actual, and this was a book that's published by a major, I think ours was Claremont Press.
Right.
A major publishing house. So districts, they may not have any ill intent. They're just sourcing their textbooks through major publishers. And why would they think that this would be problematic?
And so let's get into sort of the origin stories, right? So Laura, you saw something in your kids' class that worried you. How did you find your group of women, those moms who you then formed SHIELD with? What was the connecting tissue there that brought you together?
So it's a good and a bad thing. So I'm sure everybody knows on Facebook, there's moms groups. You have all these different mom type affinity groups. And so it's not unusual for a mom when they're in a panic mode to go right into their peer group, moms group on Facebook and say, what on earth is going on here? And I connected with several people. So that was the good thing that came out of that. And at some point, I do want to talk about the problems that can come up when you start posting this stuff in moms groups.
I would love that.
But yeah, so we ended up connecting, and over a couple of months, there were 4 of us, and we found that we were constantly talking and having these conversations and writing speeches and showing up at these school board meetings. And one day we just decided, you know what? We've never actually ever met each other. We had been talking for months and we're practically daily on the phone together and we had never met. We went crazy. We met at a Starbucks. And we sat down and we kind of decided to create SHIELD, and we sat there at the Starbucks and wrote over our coffees, our mission and vision, and we got laser focused and we started and moved forward.
So I really want to get specific on this because, I can imagine other parents watching this and thinking, well, this is incredible, but I could never do something like this in a million years, right? I didn't have the capacity. I didn't have the time. You're all moms of 3 kids, as you said. You've all got jobs outside of this. So Laura, what were and then Tamar and then Kofi, what were the sort of the strategies that you started with building SHIELD? How did you how did you construct it? What were the pitfalls in starting this organization? What were the challenges? And what has been some of your successes?
So I think the first thing that we did before we were even SHIELD, that is really what started it, was we started to collect as a group sample examples of the problems, because we needed to quantify and clarify really what are we talking about here, because and we created through using Canva, which is an extremely inexpensive and simple tool. I started a Canva document that I had online and shared with them. And we all would, through our networks, find examples of curriculum. And we would put the example there, the source. It was at XYZ Middle School in March of 2024. And then we would link all, the entire presentation behind it. So we spent easily the first 6 to 8 months just gathering up all this information so we could kind of decide, well, what is the problem? And then we could identify what we were going to do about it. Does that make sense? Because
Absolutely.
We didn't understand literally on day one. I really did think I just had a problem with my child's class that day. And over that following 6 months, I ended up with a 40-page Canva document with a boat full of presentations and curriculum problems.
Right.
So I hope that helped.
Absolutely. Yes.
the three of us, there was Nicole, Evie, and I, we had younger kids, but we had parents with teenage kids that were the ones hearing this. And a specific mom who knew that we were the type of go-getters. We were the ones that were going to take care of business. And she knew, and she tapped us. And this was something, and this is something we say to this day, that once you see it, you can't unsee it. Mm-hmm. And again, it was COVID, our kids were at home. And so the three of us with our unique different skill sets, and we saw it, we couldn't unsee it. And so we initially just started doing a lot of research and a lot of digging and having conversations, meeting with the Jewish legacy orgs, meeting with locally and federally, meeting with, as we're digging, we're connecting with other parent groups that were starting up and finding that there were other people that were noticing what was going on here. We were noticing that people were ignoring it or avoiding it. And then we realized that we had to give ourselves a name, that we had to become organized. And so we named ourselves. It took a little bit longer until we became like official and became a 501c3. We started out with doing resolutions in the school districts. And so we did resolutions affirming the rights of Jewish students, staff, and their families, and condemning anti-Semitism. And in that, we included all the things that already exist, but we put it into one document. And when we had pushback and saying like, oh, well, all these things already exist, we're like, well, we're putting it together and we're including definitions of anti-Semitism, including IRA, because anti-Semitism is nuanced. And in order to fight anti-Semitism, you have to define it. And it's not like other types of hate. And that's why when people say like, well, it's a religion. No, it's not just a religion. Exactly. That's why it's so nuanced. We have to talk about what it looks like and how it comes across. So we started out with that, passing those resolutions, and we started getting attention for that. And people started calling us for incident reporting. We were called all sorts of names: crazy, aggressive, being ostracized from the community because we were exposing people who weren't doing what we were doing. And people were like, well, why aren't you guys doing this? And we were like, well, we're doing it because no one else is doing it. That was tough. It's still tough. And then October 7th happened. And everybody kind of woke up to the fact that this was going on. And we had sounded the alarms 3 years before and said, this is happening. And the orchestrated hate you saw on college campuses didn't happen. Those college kids didn't wake up and decide to go buy matching tents. They had been indoctrinated in K-12. Now you all see it. So we need to fix this. And we need to fix this starting in kindergarten when they're getting these insane lesson plans about kids at the border in cages. You want your kindergartner learning about kids at the border in cages? Now, is that a lesson plan that should be taught? Yes. To your kindergartner? No. Right. And should it be taught? Yes, but it doesn't need to be taught factually and relevant, age appropriate. Yes. So obviously post October 7th, it has expanded greatly. We're doing a lot of great work with NAVI, and we've expanded our work nationwide. And like I said, we became 501c3, and we're doing a lot more. What can parents do? We say that parents can do whatever they're capable of doing, whatever they have the bandwidth to do. One of the things that has happened more so the last 2 years, but I think it's happened even prior to that. A lot of schools have like a heritage fair or a cultural night where groups of people that share heritages, or if maybe you don't share a heritage, maybe you're the only one, but you go and you create a table and you decorate it, and you maybe have some food and you dress in your cultural garb and you share your heritage with your school's community. Well, what we have found a lot recently is that the table that is the Palestinian table is using it to then distribute misinformation. So we have received, they're wearing keffiyehs and they're distributing flyers that have an outline of what we know as the sovereign country of Israel, labeled as Palestine, and it's a coloring that you're supposed to color it in with the map of Palestine. Mm-hmm. So it is, in essence, erasing Israel. Mm. So what can parents do? Well, these nights are run by someone. It's either run by your PTO, your PTA, or it's run by your school. Parents can go and get involved, and you can do this in a non-aggressive. It doesn't need to come from a Jewish perspective. It needs to come from just a general political perspective. Is who's vetting the materials that are being distributed, and it should be a non-political event. This needs to be let's share our heritage. This should just be, let's share the beautiful aspects of our cultures and not make it political. So what are the rules? Let's set rules about these evenings, and maybe let's talk about vetting the materials that are being passed out, just like you have rules about the food that's passed out, because perhaps you have nut allergies, and so there's a no nut rule. Like, there needs to be rules put in place. So parents can do something simple as that. If you have a little bit more time, it's going through your kids' books. That's something you can do at home. As soon as my kids came home with their textbooks, that's the first thing I did was I opened that up. Going to school board meetings. Agendas are posted 72 hours beforehand. There are not enough of us. We need parents to look at their kids' agendas and look for keywords. Look for words that like Kofi said, that raise your alarm, that trigger you. That look for words in the school board meetings that are like, what are they voting on? Like, what are they talking about here? And then reach out to Camera or NAVI or Peer K-12 or SHIELD. Reach out to whoever it is. And if it's not us, we'll put you in touch with your local group. But, if something sounds suspicious to you, reach out to somebody and we'll help you figure out if indeed it is something that you should be concerned about. But going to school board meetings, speaking up, one of the things that we really encourage parents to do is just letting them know that you're paying attention. Letting them know that you know your rights. Letting them know that you know ed code, that you know that you know what your rights are as a parent, what the student rights are. You talk about taking those surveys. You can opt out of them. Letting them know that you can opt out of them. So you can easily just asserting that. You don't have to make a big deal. Look, I've got 3 kids in public school, and I've super low profile. They don't want me to make a big fuss. I have not stepped foot on campus. I'm keeping a low profile right now. But I'm paying attention, and parents just need to just be aware of what's going on and know what to look out for and where to go when that happens.
So, Kofi, before I get to you, I just want to jump in really quickly. So, Tamar, you said, let them know that we know ed code. Now, for an individual parent, that might seem like ed codes, state standards. What are those? And Laura, I know that you have some really good tips about that. So, do you want to just jump in here and share your expertise?
So for the state of Georgia, what we did as a way to get ahead of this, rather being proactive versus reactive, state standards are very available on your State Department of Education website, and I'm sure it's in a different format for every state. Fortunately, ours was in Microsoft Excel. And you can literally download your state standards. We at SHIELD did this for Georgia, and you can run it against hot button topics or keywords so that you can go ahead and know in advance, when do you need to be most vigilant? Because I agree completely with Tamar. Like, we need to be looking at this curriculum that these kids have in these books, but there aren't enough hours in the day, especially if you have 3 sons, to go look at every single page. But you can go scrub your curriculum against an AI, and you can look for the buzzwords. And we identified, for Georgia, 5th grade is a really significant year. They talk about the Holocaust and World War II. And 7th grade, the entire first, I think it's 8 to 10 weeks of curriculum focuses on Israel and the geography and the history of the Middle East. Like, it's nice to know and be able to let 7th grade parents across the entire state of Georgia, let them know it's coming. Hey, August, September, half of October, you need to be on heightened alert.
It's also that we do need to teach our kids what to listen for, because it doesn't matter what is in the textbook, what's in the curriculum, it's what's coming out of a teacher's mouth. And I'm not condemning all teachers, but there are bad apples, and there are teachers that are going to say things that are erroneous because they have an agenda. And so in California, we have ed code that teachers must abide by. And so we have like board policy 6144 is controversial issues. It has to be age appropriate, relevant to the curriculum. We have ed code about teachers, like they cannot bring their personal opinion into the classroom, period. And so like we can provide that ed code to parents. We do, like we arm them. As soon as they come to us and say that, we arm them, we bring them, like we send them an email and say, these are the ed codes that you go with them. Like I think I have them in front of me. There's we have 201, the educational opportunities free from discrimination of political bias. There is 7055, the prohibits the use of school resources for political activity. And then there's other ones about teachers specifically cannot bring their opinion into the classroom and their discussion.
And so what are some of the buzzwords that we need to watch out for in curriculum and in the classroom? Kofi, do you have some suggestions for parents to look out for? Would you like a dictionary?
I don't know. I don't know if it's buzzwords. I feel like you have to just kind of have a general understanding of what's going on to be able to identify it, because it's not always a buzzword
and the buzzwords change, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Like right now we're talking about settler colonialism. We're talking about restorative justice is not always used. Social emotional learning is unfortunately become a buzzword. Land acknowledgement is a suspicious one. Critical race theory is something to be suspicious about. Affinity groups is another one. I mean, everything that you think sounds good has been manipulated, and at its core is rotten, unfortunately.
And so perhaps the best way of knowing what's going on in your kid's class and what the teacher is saying, and so the full context, the full picture of it, is just to, at the dinner table, ask your kid, how was school today? What happened? What did you learn in class? And through the sort of the fullness of that discussion, plus the assignments, plus the textbooks, you can get a sense of what's going on. Because sometimes you're right, it's not going to slap you in the face and be obvious. Sometimes it might be a bit more insidious. Kofi, I'd love for you to talk about your journey as an individual activist, and then this group that you organized, the Roseville United group, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
So I went on a walk during COVID, and I met the head of the Senate Education Committee, the senator. So I got involved. We got to know each other, and so then I would go. He'd ask me to testify a lot at different hearings, and so I was doing a lot on the state level working on this, but I hadn't really worked in my school district because I knew the area I'm in, how it is politically, that I'd probably be a lone wolf, and I just was so discouraged. I never even tried. But one day I decided to attend a school board meeting by myself with my notebook, And there were a few people speaking that I agreed with, and they had to say their name and address, which we got removed as a requirement. But anyways, their address and all that. But anyway, so then during the meeting, I just wrote down their names during the meeting. And then when they walked out, I chased them out. And so then we all started talking outside the meeting, these people I didn't know. And that's how we formed our group, Roseville United. And we were going to go to the next school board meeting and speak up together. And we decided we needed a name and email address so that when we were speaking and it went out to the public, they would have a way to contact us. And so, and it just so happens, like I believe it was divine, but that next meeting we were going to, for some crazy reason, this outside wokish group was going to be coming to the next meeting, and there were hundreds of them. And we had planned to come too. So anyways, it was just the perfect meeting for us to go to, and they got to hear opposing points of view on those issues. So that's how our group, Roseville United, started. And I also have a group called the Exodus Movement with 5 Black ladies. And we, I met one of them just at an event, a local event. She sat next to me. She called me up. We got together. We invited others in. And so now we work really hard on school choice and any issues we believe that are negatively impacting kids of color.
Great. And, you sort of came to prominence in your fight against ethnic studies in Minnesota. Could you give us a little bit of background? Because when we think about ethnic studies, we think about California mainly, right? Could you give us a bit of background about what is happening in ethnic studies in Minnesota and what the status of it is now, and why you think it's a problem?
Yeah, I had been doing a lot fighting for this stuff. So like when I would speak at school board meetings, people would record it and then they put it online. And so then like Fox News, I've been on different news things, different podcasts. I've done a lot. Right now I'm doing something with Minnesota Public Radio, which I'm excited about because it's my first opportunity to speak to where you don't feel like you're preaching to the choir. So all that happened. And then, wait, what's the question now? I'm forgetting. Oh, then ethnic studies. So then I took a break from all this stuff because it is exhausting. Like I prepare really hard for everything I do. And I was like, I'm taking a break from all this stuff. But then someone called me from I'm involved with a lot of our local public policy agencies. And they called and talked about this ethnic studies was coming down. And when I read the bill, I was so upset. I couldn't even believe it. Like the actual definition of ethnic studies that's in Minnesota 120B.25 says they talk about they study the connection of race to the stratification of groups. Like there's a hierarchy of groups. And of course, my people are at the bottom as usual. Screw them. No, we're not. Like we are free. So I got upset. I went and spoke at a meeting, and then somebody recorded it and that went viral. So then I had like 3 more news appearances from that. But ethnic studies, it did get passed. Despite all of that stuff helped get it out to all the local news stations, all the local parents. We fought it, but it did get passed. But then when the legislature switched balance recently, like ours is like, it's always like, it's pretty neck and neck here in Minnesota. So we fought to repeal it. So then I spoke again at the legislature, worked with them to repeal it. It did pass the education. It passed the House Education Committee, but then it's now stalled somewhere. So now they might pick it up again in 2026. But we're trying to.
California will follow suit.
But I don't have much confidence it will be repealed with our governor, but a lot of people are not happy with him since he was on the ticket for VP here. And even Democrats aren't happy with him. And so who knows, we might be able to get somebody who is, better running from office. And one of my friends, Kendall Qualls, is running for governor. He's part of Take Charge Minnesota, that I'm also a part of, which is about making a difference through faith, family, and education for Black people. So he's running for governor, and I just hope he wins. And if he does, then I think there's hope that we could make some change, because he's been working really hard against this ethnic studies bill and really hard for school choice also. So that's where we're at. We have ethnic studies, and it's being taught, and it's required to be taught in many different subject matters in school right now.
So I can pick up on that in California.
Please do.
So, we have AB 101. They had to add all these guardrails. Like if you have to add that many guardrails, that maybe you didn't do this correctly. And then this past legislative session, they crafted this AB 1468, which was going to be another bill where they wanted to attach state standards, which means they wanted to elevate ethnic studies to the same level as every other subject, which they're failing at. We actually did come out against that because we're like, absolutely not. Like you're not doing your job at reading and writing and math, social studies. Why would you bring ethnic studies to that level? And then the other reason we're concerned about that is once you bring a standard, that means it's going to be a hop, skip, and a jump before it now becomes a requirement to get into a UC, a University of California, and a Cal State University. And we want to prevent that from happening, because then that takes it outside of California, and that makes it a nationwide and even a worldwide requirement to get into a UC and a CSU. That bill died a quick death and then became AB 715. But let me backtrack or pause quickly. AB 101 was not funded. It needed to be funded this session in order to become a mandate for the graduation year of 2030, and it did not. So it is currently not mandated. Certain school districts have already mandated on their own. So like my school district, San Diego Unified, had mandated it 10 years ago for whatever reason. So certain school districts have already mandated. Other ones that we're in the process of mandating it this year, we have actually gone out and told them, you don't have to. You're not going to get paid to. You're not going to get reimbursed by the state. And so some of them have made it an elective. Some of them have said, you know what, we're just going to pause this. So the ones that made it an elective, students didn't sign up for it. So they're not offering it because they can't afford to have a teacher trained to teach it if there's no students interested in it. And other ones, they're just not offering it. And so we have a couple wins there. 715 was published last night. It needs to hit the governor's desk Friday night. So we got a full 3 days to review the text. It is an assembly bill that was broadened from just ethnic studies to addressing anti-Semitism in K-12. It's okay. It's not great. It has zero definition of anti-Semitism whatsoever. There's no references to Israel. There's no references to Zionism. There's no references to the right of Israel to exist or the significance of Israel to the Jewish people. There is a reference to the creation of an anti-Semitism prevention coordinator role in the new Office of Civil Rights in California. And there's the reference to a teacher having to accurately, factually represent Israel or Judaism when it comes to them raising it, which already exists. So that's 715. Ethnic studies in this state, liberated ethnic studies, wrote the first bill. It was born and bred in the state. And you can hear all about it in this morning's congressional hearing. Dr. Brandy Shevtitsky goes into some detail on it in this hearing. Please go and listen to this morning's hearing. And my co-founder, Nicole Bernstein, has a whole deep dive into the background of ethnic studies and where it comes from and why it's so dangerous and why there is no such thing as good ethnic studies. Ethnic studies is not good. There is no such thing as good ethnic studies, period, full stop.
Co-signed. And I want to say that, if your school is considering ethnic studies, then the tools that Laura and Tamar and Kofi are talking about in this webinar are for you to implement. We're almost at time. So before I have my wrap-up question, I know, Kofi, you just want to address a comment in the chat. So I'll give you that opportunity now, and then I'll get back to our regular.
Yeah, there's a comment in the chat that says that though I agree with most of the conversation, I'm a little distressed by Kofi's generalization about how educators view Black kids as stupid, as opposed to the fact that they have been historically disparities in the home and society that can be based economically and not on not on race, but just as when someone is giving you a handicap or lower, they used to just lower the bar for us with affirmative action. Now they lower the bar for everyone with an automatic 50% in grading. But we all know why they're doing it. It's because we are at the bottom of all the disparities. And how do we know they don't view us as dumb? When you take away the standard because we can't meet them, how do you know we don't think we are dumb? How will we ever have a chance to prove to ourselves or other people that we are not dumb? And so that is the reason I'm motivated to do this, because I do think that they are giving us a handicap because of our intellect. And yes, there is history in society, but history history can't be changed. It doesn't change the future that we can make it. And our people did better in every sense before the civil rights movement. So when there was actual systematic racism, like we were actually down and out, there were laws to keep us down, we did better in all these areas. So to say that there's some sort of racism or history that keeps us down is not necessarily true. We did better before all of this. And now the barriers are removed. We have equal opportunity. There's no excuse. There's no excuse for us not excelling. There's no excuse for anybody not believing in us and our children that we can do it, and that we have to lower the bar for us. And none of this is based on economics. The social justice movement, and it's actually called Black Lives Matter. That is simply based on race. And I wouldn't have as much of a problem with it if it were economically based and we were trying to help all kids who are not doing well. But to say they're going to help all Black kids, give me a break. To assume we're all intellectually down and out and need help, no matter who we are or where we come from, to assume my son who has a 3.9 and is going to go into engineering and is, double accelerated math, is low and below and ahead of some white kid who's barely making it academically, just based on his race. And he needs they tried to put him in the special AVID program just based on his race. No. So, I mean, I do think that I do acknowledge that we need to do more to help, that there are disparities and that we need to do more to help them. But I don't think that should just be based on race and because we're down and out just because of the color of our skin.
Okay. Thank you. So before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you all for an example of an individual action that you took which reduced or removed an example of politicization in the classroom. Laura, do you want to start us off on that?
Yeah, we worked with our school district in response to the teachers pay teachers and the problems we saw in my son's classroom. And after collecting data, having multiple meetings with board members and attending school board meetings, the district did take the curriculum from Claremont Press, set that aside, and rewrote in-house their own curriculum. That is a radical improvement. While it is not perfect, it is much better. And what I can appreciate, one of the things I want to say is that they had watermarked the curriculum. So when you're talking about some of these sensitive subjects and the fact that we've moved away from, books and paper in the classroom, and now you have these drives and anyone can put anything on a drive, there's now some quality control in there that we can see when we're talking about these 7th grade Middle East standards, that they're watermarked. And I think that's probably one of our most significant improvements. And also in line, we worked with several different organizations, and we got, just at the beginning of the school year, the state of Georgia revised their teacher notes for the exact same subject. And that is radically improved and is now linking to actual vetted, reputable sources for information. So those are two big wins we had here in Georgia.
That's fantastic. Kofi, do you want to share an example?
One example was that band teacher I spoke of. I asked to meet with him personally just to talk this through. And so I met with him and we talked. And then after that, my different students and my son said that he was not having those discussions as much. And when he did, he tried to tread very lightly and make it short. So they could tell that there was a difference in how he was, that he knew not everybody in the class agreed, that he might be recorded, that, we were on him. And so, I mean, he changed his ways. So that was like something practical. And sometimes it's just better to not go before a school board and try to insult someone.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's better to just have an individual conversation with someone and see if that changes their mind. On ethnic studies, they didn't make it they were going to make a mandated class, and they didn't do that. And then they softened a lot of the language when we would speak before the legislature. We called them out. We read their explicit racist language, and they did soften it and temper it for the final bill. So those are some examples of some little changes.
Those are big changes, Kofi. don't sell yourself short. And Tamar.
I mentioned a few. We got Ramona Unified and Coronado Unified. We helped them to prevent ethnic studies from becoming a mandate in their districts. We had a DEI element of the PTO, and Poway Unified was pushing a anti-Semitic, anti-Israel platform, and we got that completely dismantled. We did the Heritage Nights in a number of different schools and school districts. We had a teacher, a middle school history teacher, that in different classes, he had Israeli students that said that they were Israeli, identified as Israeli. And he told them, no, you cannot, that's not, if you cannot identify as that, it's called Palestine.
Wow.
And then both students were too scared to tell their parents. That's something I actually wanted to touch on, is that your kids are often afraid to tell you because they don't want you to go make a fuss. We need to talk to our kids about that it's, we do it in a way that the kids are not going to be the center of attention here, but it's important that these teachers are taken care of. And so the next spring break, when, later on that year, when they went to Israel and they came back, what'd you do over spring break? I went to Israel. I told you before, we don't call it that, it's Palestine. Then they finally told their parent. That teacher was removed, and that teacher was not in the classroom. And so that we help the parents advocate for themselves with ed code, with state law, with federal law. Oh gosh, I mean, there's a lot of instances that we have helped keep politics out of the classroom, but
along those lines, I think that you got to be careful when you are if your kids don't want to be outed, we have to be careful in how we handle it, because we can't just fight our battle at their expense. And so we have to, 100%. I do think we have to consider them and how we do what we do.
That's one of the things that we do. And so a lot of the things that we do is the parents will come to us and we do it for them. And so that way we keep the parent and the children anonymous, and we do it for them. So we have this happening at a local high school, University City High School, where we have a mouthpiece for CARE is a student. And so we're speaking on behalf of the students there. And we have another situation at a school, another junior high or middle school over here. And so a lot of times we'll do that for them. We had an Arab American Heritage Month where they tried to label Palestine as a country. That's another politicization, where we said, absolutely not. You are not going to put that in a resolution. It's not a country. Simply, that's misinformation. And of course, Mika, as you exposed, that was ADC and Majdal Center was behind that. They did revise that and they changed it to nation. But those are just, you just have to be on top of them constantly. They're putting links in their ethnic studies newsletters that are going to teaching Palestine, and you just teaching, you just have to be on top of them constantly. And if you are not on top of them, then they're just going to keep getting away with it.
So,
go ahead.
Sorry, Kofi, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Can I just say really quick some examples of race? People would like you to think that this isn't based on race, but in the legislature, in the hearing, they specifically said Black kids are getting suspended at a disproportionate rate for their behavior. This is why we have to eliminate suspensions. And maybe they were being maybe they were behaving disproportionately badly. And maybe they were doing that in Black classrooms where other good Black kids couldn't learn, who were doing. And so they specifically said that. They specifically said teachers of color, people are trying to be teachers, can't pass these exams. Therefore, we are getting rid of the exam to become a teacher in Minnesota. They're trying to get rid of it. But I'm just saying, they will explicitly say, I met with the superintendent. She said, Black kids don't behave. They're not as behaved as white kids at home. They're more loo. Therefore, maybe we shouldn't get them in trouble for their behaviors as much. And so I just wanted to say, I do think your point is a good one in the comment, but like race and having lower standards for us based on how we behave and the color of our skin has been brought up, instead of having high expectations for us that we can behave the same as everyone else if we just work harder at it as parents, as the community, and as a school.
So before we wrap up, because we're at time, I just want to sort of think about some takeaways for parents here. Number one is you can do it, right? As our panelists have shown. But I think the main takeaway is really talk to your kids, find out what's going on in their class, find out what's happening in the school, find out what they're learning in class that day. And then there are different strategies that you can use. You know, as Kofi says, a one-on-one conversation can often go a long way. It doesn't need to be a big thing. You don't need to storm the school board, you know, on your horses with your shields and your swords. And you can just talk to a teacher, or you can talk to a principal, or you can do what Laura does and, you know, look at the state standards and then look at what your kid is learning and decide, is there a mismatch here? And if there is, well, then maybe I should go talk to the principal, or maybe I should go talk to the school district, or you can do what Tamar does and you know, go up a level, right? So, and the other thing is, as they said, you don't want your kid to be caught in the crossfire. And so you need to determine, well, is there something that I need to battle, or is there something that Laura or Tamar or Kofi or NAVI can battle for me? And that's what we're here to do as well, right? So you need to know what to look out for, and then you can determine the best path and the best strategy for your family. But the key is that it's not insurmountable. We can all do it. We can remove politics from the classroom and build a neutral future. And so I just want to thank the panelists today, Kofi, Tamar, Laura, for sharing your expertise and your history and your inspiring stories. I was really excited to hear from you all today, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.